Welcome into another episode of Everything is Logistics, a podcast for the thinkers in freight. I am your host, Blythe Milligan, and we are proudly presented by SPI Logistics. And I've got a quick episode for y'all today, and it's kind of highlighting the behind the scenes of one of our pillar categories over on CargoRex, and that is industry associations. That's right, logistics and supply chain associations, and this immense category that we have been building over on CargoRex because for folks who may not know, and let me take a chance to take a step back. CargoRex is a company that I launched earlier this year, and we have 5 pillars of content and directory listings that we are building out in order to become the goal of being the search engine for logistics. And so those 5 pillars are associations, technology, services, creators, and events. And out of those 5, obviously there are subcategories for each one of those. There's different modes for each one of those. But for the sake of this episode, and I wanted to focus on associations because associations, it's a lot. I had no idea that there were this many associations in our industry. 92 by my count is how many industry associations we have in logistics and supply chain. And if you're as surprised as I am to hear that number, I want to get into a little bit of the behind the scenes of how we were building this, how it kind of evolved into something that went from like a couple dozen that I thought as far as associations are concerned, but it ended up being close to 100. And I'm willing to bet once we start opening this up to, sort of global audiences, that number is probably going to skyrocket even more as far as logistics and supply chain associations within our industry. And I wanted to highlight a couple different things of how we built this and more importantly, why we built this. And for me, I've been in logistics, God, for like 15 years now, but I didn't get involved in industry associations until just within the last few years. And within the last few years, I have become involved with TMSA, which is Transportation Marketing and Sales Association. I'm a board member for them. Other industry associations, I'm sure most people listening to this are very familiar with TIA, Transportation Intermediaries Association. And then there's, of course, CSCMP. There's a couple of other associations, even locally here in my hometown of Jacksonville. There's the Traffic Club. There's also the Propeller Club of Jacksonville, which is both of those are, I don't want to say smaller, but they're like city specific associations of a larger associations. For example, Jack's Propeller Club is a subsidiary of the International Propeller Club. And so for CSCMP, I think it has a very similar model. Traffic Club, of course, has a similar model to both of those as well, where they have different fractions in different cities all across the United States. And some of them have fractions fractions. Is that fractions is the right, I guess, phrase that I'm looking for this. But some of them, especially when it comes to like Prop Club, they have different groups all over the world. And so this was something that I thought with building out associations, I thought it would be fairly easy. And it was not. When I put out a post over on LinkedIn a couple months ago asking folks, I was just going to ask my network, what associations are you a part of? What do you find, sort of beneficial about associations that you've been a part of? And I was just reminded of so many more associations that I had no idea existed. So something that was going to be pretty much a quick blog post that I was going to throw up on CargoRex turned into something that I needed to say, okay, let's take a step back because there's much more here than I originally thought. And so we need to take a deeper dive into this and make sure that we are truly building out what I believe is the largest database of industry associations, logistics specific associations that I have seen on the web or part of, anybody's sort of isolated maybe directory or database. We have close to 100 associations related to logistics and supply chain already on the CargoRex website. And that is kind of shocking to even say out loud. I had to do a double take looking at our numbers on the CargoRex site. And I'm like, 92, that's insane. And we haven't even really gone outside of the US in order to start building up, some of these associations that are global. I've really only focused on the United States and gone through sort of word of mouth and Google searches and trying to figure out where are the gaps that we're missing. And I thought I had it all until I made a LinkedIn post asking for people to submit testimonial, or yeah, testimonial is probably the right phrase that I can use here, but a testimonial about, what associations are you part of? Has it driven real business value for you? What kind of value do you find in being part of an association? And a lot of the comments that I got were simply around being around like-minded people, and like-minded people where you can kind of speak the same language and you can use it as an opportunity, whether you are a professional that's maybe kind of hit a plateau and or maybe you've moved into a different industry segment, or maybe you're completely new to the industry altogether and looking to make those in-person connections. And I think that that is sort of the unifying message for a lot of industry associations, is turning those digital handshakes into real life conversations. And so that is the sort of the pulse of why we made this expansive directory for the associations category, which, I do plan to do this or when I say do this, plan to make an episode like this, a database resource, a blog post resource, making those kinds of different resources so I can provide that information to y'all, and then y'all can take that and run with it and then be able to join the associations that make the most sense. Maybe find associations that are local to you so you don't have to spend a ton of time and money traveling to different industry conferences, trying to make the best possible resource. So I put that LinkedIn post out a couple months ago, and it has taken damn near every bit of 2 months to just make sure that we have all of the associations that I can think of, all of the ones that other people have recommended, and then all of the ones that I found with additional searches, additional deep research guides that I've done on damn near every AI platform, whether it's ChatGPT or Grok or even, Notebook LM to a certain extent, which is not really a deep research platform. But the goal is to try to create a centralized place for these different associations, as well as, technology and services, events and things like that, that all live within our industry to help folks make better decisions on where they want to go, where they want to spend their time and attention, and even what software to buy, or, based on other people's experiences, based on word of mouth, and trying to be the ultimate search engine for logistics. So the associations was a big part of that. And if I could just, I know for folks who are listening, I'm sorry, but I'm going to show up on the screen just a scroll of the CargoRex site so that you can see all of the different associations we have on here. And it really is just remarkable. It's never ending. And like I said, it is 92 by my count by this time of recording. And I'm sure after I publish this episode, there are going to be tons of people reaching out and say, why didn't you include my association? I will. I want to. You just have to submit it over on the CargoRex website. So you can kind of get an idea just by looking at this of all of the different associations that are in our industry. And it's just, it really is, it's truly remarkable. So here is a blog post that we are actually, I am working on getting published out to the world. We should have this up at the time of this episode. Whenever you hear it, you will also see this published over on the CargoRex website, which I'll share in the show notes just to make it super easy for folks. But from all the quotes that I got, whether it was publicly on that LinkedIn post or within, some DMs that folks had sent me, or even emails that folks had sent me, I went through, I collected all of these different testimonials, and then I organized this blog post by modes. And so scrolling through this blog post, we talk about the best trade associations for logistics professionals, talking about how to boost your network and knowledge and credibility. So the blog post kind of goes through a few of them, and I tried to organize them as best as possible by mode. So we have a additional search filters on the CargoRex website where you can search by different modes, because a lot of associations are specific around whether it's trucking or maritime or air. There's lots of different associations that are mode specific. And then there's lots of associations that are location specific. And so building a database is a lot tougher than I thought it was going to be. I thought this seems like it's going to be a project that's going to take me for the rest of my life in order to finish. But luckily, this is a business that is fully self-funded, no VC funds, no outrageous like growth metrics. This is me and a small team building this out, and we're going to further build it out, enrich it, and create these resources for, hopefully, all different segments within logistics. And so associations being one of our 5 core pillars, that is where we're getting kicked off and where we're getting started with a lot of these different, kind of walk through behind the scenes blog posts plus podcasts and things like that. So back to the blog post, I listed them by mode, as I've said a couple times. So the first up, we have trucking and LTL associations. This by no means, as far as the blog post, is comprehensive. I just wanted to really focus on the people who submitted a quote or submitted a testimonial for that specific association. A couple of these too, I pulled from previous interviews on this same podcast. And so what you'll see here, Ann Rinke, who was the former president and CEO of TIA, she's now at IANA. We plan to talk to her soon on the podcast so we can get an idea of what's going on with IANA and the intermodal side of things. So of course we have TIA. We have a quote from Ann that talks about the TIA specifically when it comes to going to their conferences. And she mentions you get to meet people who've been coming to TIA meetings for 45 years and those who just started last year. So she's kind of drawing the parallel between industry veterans and newbies. And she says that mix of a demographic speaks for itself. And so thought that that was a good quote to highlight in one of our previous conversations, that when she's talking about TIA, she really is talking about a wide range of expertise, whether it's a fresh opinion, a fresh set of eyes on an industry, or somebody that's been doing it for decades. I think that that mix is really valuable. And if I'm a new freight broker coming into the industry, or if I'm a 3PL that's just getting started, 3PLs probably 99% of them already know about TIA. Maybe some freight brokers who are just entering the industry have no idea about TIA. Maybe their company is a member and maybe they send a couple people to that association. Maybe I know TIA has a couple signature events each year. And then they also have local, I don't want to say local chapter meetups, but I believe that they also have different like micro events and micro meetups in different cities like Dallas, Atlanta, Chicago, all over the country is where they'll do like mini meetups that are, like mini round tables. So a little bit of a smaller event versus their 2 signature events, but still probably really valuable for a freight broker who's just getting into the industry. And maybe you don't get the ticket to go to the big conference, but maybe the local event is something that you would want to be interested in. And so a little bit of an extra, but I guess behind the scenes peek behind the curtain, especially for CargoRex, is that we do have events as one of our other key pillars. And so the idea is that as we continue to build out on the events side too, which there's so many logistics events, that we'll be able to show you as a user, hey, I'm new to the industry, or hey, I'm a veteran to the industry. Here are all the events that are going on in the mode that I'm specifically interested in, and the segment that I'm in, whether it's air or whether it's maritime, over the road. So all of these different segments, hopefully we are providing those associations that you can spend your time with, and then the industry events that make the most sense for you based on where you're at in your career, the location, and then obviously your interest. And so moving through the rest of this list, we have another quote from the National Motor Freight Traffic Association, and this comes from Marley Hall, and she says that FTA plays a foundational role in modernizing the less than truckload sector, from standardizing digital documents to fortifying cybersecurity defenses. Their work influences how freight is moved and protected in real time. Now, Marley goes on to say that FTA is one of the rare industry groups that actually gets stuff done, whether it's modernizing the freight classifications or pushing the industry towards a digital future with standards like the electronic bill of lading. their work directly impacts how efficiently and accurately we all operate. As someone working in the intersection of logistics and technology, I see the NMFTA as the glue between legacy systems and the digital supply chain we all need. So great quote from Marley there, even if I personally have a little bit of trouble of, saying that acronym NMFTA. I almost want to say M&Ms there, but NMFTA. So apologies for that, I guess slower pronunciation of that. Now, next up in this specific mode, we do have a quote from Beth Malik. She is the Senior Director of Marketing over at SMC3. So if you work in LTL at any kind of capacity, I'm sure you've heard of SMC3. She's also a board member over on TMSA. So I know Beth, love her, super sweet person. If you ever have a chance to connect with her, I absolutely highly recommend it. But her quote says, SMC3 provides employees with access to the online education courses for LTL, allowing us to better appreciate our customers' operations, the challenges they face, and how SMC3 solutions contribute to their success. Earning my CLTL certified at LTL has made me more effective as a marketing leader and highlights SMC3's commitment to developing talent that deeply understands the industry we serve. Now, deeply understands the industry we serve. I want to call that out because when we talk about over the road transportation, LTL is like a beast in and of itself. LTL is something that I absolutely need to learn more about. And we probably need to have, a guest on the show to talk about more LTL side of things. I got a couple guests in mind, but I'm just thinking out loud here that this is a segment that I need to cover more in depth in the future. So as I'm scrolling through this, you'll probably, if you were watching this instead of listening it, you'll see these different content blocks or type to choose a block or to use content AI. Just want to call that out really quick. I am still in the editing mode of this blog post. So that's the reason why you see these little nuggets there. So just in case it annoys you as much as it annoys me while I'm recording this, just pay no attention to that content behind the curtain. Moving on to a couple of other additional associations, rail and intermodal side of things. We've got the Association of American Railroads. We have got obviously IANA in that mix. We've got maritime and port associations that we are calling out here in the blog post as well. We got a good quote from Prop Club. I just had Linda Carey on from Carry On Transportation Solutions on the show. Go and listen to that episode because she is just a wealth of knowledge. She's a local Jacksonvillian, if that is I'm going to make it a thing, Jacksonvillian. But she's based in Jacksonville, Florida. She's been working in every different position that you could imagine in a transportation company before she went and started her own company. She's also been heavily involved in the Jax Propeller Club, she's currently serving as a president. And I believe that this is her second time serving as president of the Jax Prop Club. So kudos to her. The interview was fantastic. Be sure to go and listen to her. But when she was talking about the Prop Club, she says, we're a nonprofit, all ran by volunteers, but it's concentrated in the maritime industry and pushing the maritime industry as well as our logistics partners because we all work together, nurturing our future. Our students are very important to us. They are also the future of the companies here. We want to keep them here. We want to keep them in Jacksonville. We want to show them that they can do it here. They can work for international companies and still stay here and do wonderful things, which I love that sentiment. I love that statement because if you're not in like a major city like a Chicago or Atlanta or New York, when you're at sort of, I guess, the second tier type city like a Jacksonville that, is striving to be better, but sometimes can be its own worst enemy or can sometimes, have a reputation of getting in its own way. I have the mindset of I'm tired of seeing our creative talent and entrepreneurial talent leave the city or think they need to leave the city in order to make their career better or have better opportunities. It's very much a passion of mine to build something in Jacksonville that keeps folks here. I have another business called the Jacksonville Podcasters United that we have a very strong podcasting hub as far as nationally is concerned. We have major podcasting companies that call Jacksonville their home. And it wasn't until I left Jacksonville to go to a podcasting conference in Denver that I realized how many, we had a dozen people, different companies, podcasters, all in Denver. And I'm like, why aren't we building this in Jacksonville, where we don't have to travel all the way to Denver in order to talk about the things that we're passionate about. And so that's where, I find a lot of symmetry or synergy with what Linda's saying here when it comes to the transportation and logistics community. And so I echo these statements. Work for international companies, work on your talents and your creative ability, your entrepreneurial ability, and you can do it all right in your hometown. And so that's the point of, associations. That's the point of different groups and things like that, is that you can make your city the place where you can water it and make the grass greener. You don't have to go somewhere else. And in order to, well, I kind of had to go somewhere else in order to realize the value of Jacksonville podcasting, but you don't have to go somewhere else in order to realize the value of the town that you're in and the things that you can build. But you have to put your own time and resources into it. You have to go out there and go to the networking events. You have to put yourself out there. You have to talk to people you don't know. You have to make small talk. You have to turn those digital handshakes into real life communications, into real life relationships. We all know this industry is built around relationships, and that is going to be the thing that's going to propel you further. So Propeller Club, kind of a good synergy there. As we're scrolling through the rest of this, I'm just going to go through really quickly, because we got regional and multimodal associations. So doesn't necessarily have to be specific to one mode. So we broke those down even further with Traffic Club. Then we have cross industry associations. So CSCMP definitely comes to mind here. Association for Supply Chain Management is another one. There's also specialized associations. So TMSA, I've kind of already talked about them before. But real quick, this quote from Jennifer Carpus Remain, who is the executive director at TMSA. She's been a guest on this show several times. So go check our podcast library over on everythingislogistics.com if you want to hear more from her. But what she says about TMSA is, she says TMSA matters because it's more than just an association. It's a community dedicated to giving back to the transportation industry. We bring together professionals from all modes of transport, providing resources, education, and networking opportunities that help our members grow, adapt, and thrive. Whether it's through our benchmarking studies, member portal events, or recognition programs, TMSA is here to support, connect, and empower its members to be better marketers, salespeople, and leaders within the industry. Now, obviously, TMSA is focused on marketing and sales association, or marketing and sales folks within the logistics industry. And there could be other jobs related, or there could be other roles within logistics. I think maybe safety comes to mind, maybe legal comes to mind. But these roles within a logistics or transportation company, that typically you are the only employee. Sales teams, of course, have a ton, always will have a ton, no matter what company you work at. And I would argue that every person is responsible for sales at a given company. But for the sake of this, I guess this post and this episode, is that for a lot of folks, you might be the only one who is working on that particular project within your company. And so for associations like the TMSA, or even, like Prop Club, or some of these other industry events, you could be going to them and being able to find your people. And oftentimes, especially with marketing, you're oftentimes a one-person team. And so you have nobody else except for ChatGPT to bounce ideas off of, because you have such an insane amount of responsibilities. But by going to an event like TMSA's annual Elevate conference, then you will be able to connect with other people who are in your shoes, who speak the same language, who share your gripes, but also want to cheer you on and help you succeed. And so it's not really like a heavy competition mindset. It's really about helping each other upskill and be able to grow, because for a lot of marketers, you're probably not going to stay at that company for forever. And I think for a lot of even CMOs, if your company even has a CMO, the average span of a CMO at any company is less than 2 years. So you're probably going to be job hopping. And I wouldn't necessarily call that hopping, but leaving to go to hopefully better opportunities and better working conditions, where you maybe have a little bit more of an extra budget, or you have a little bit more freedom to get creative. But that is a perfect example of somebody who, if you come into this industry, maybe you don't know a lot of people, you don't know a lot about the industry yet, but you go to an event like that. And that's where you meet your people, you make some connections, and you learn from other experienced folks. So you can cut to the chase a lot faster. So that's kind of a good rundown of what the blog post is. And I kind of already showed, that layout of the associations category over on the CargoRex website. But I think I've kind of said all I needed to say about the how and the why that we built this. And I hope that for folks who are looking to maybe upskill, or maybe you've hit a plateau, like I mentioned earlier in this episode, or maybe you're new to the industry and you're looking for those additional resources. I hope that this blog post is helpful to you. I'm hoping that it directs you to the associations category where you can find an association that fits what you are looking for, what you want to get out of this industry, career wise, even like mental health wise, connecting with other folks. Networking is so important. Relationships are so important. I imagine this is important for all industries, but it feels especially true for logistics. And so that's sort of the biggest reason why I've been building this in the background of CargoRex, and associations, services, technology, events, and creators. We're going to be building out. We are building out, and we have built. I think we have. Gosh, I'm thinking out loud here, but we have, I think, over 1,200 businesses already that are logistics specific in our directory. And it doesn't sound like a lot because we're not focused on carriers. We're not focused on, third party logistics providers or even freight forwarders. We're focused because there's plenty of people out there. There's plenty of lists out there that already tackle those three really big, I don't want to even say niches, but those three categories. That's not an area that we're going to be focused on. We are really focused on those five key pillars, and then the companies that have technology or services solutions within those different categories. I'm not saying it's out of the future, completely, but it just doesn't feel like a smart place for us to play, especially if I go back to my point from the earlier point in this episode, that there hasn't really been a database that lists all of the associations, all of the events, the technology, the service providers, and creators that outside of, some top 10 blog posts and things like that. CargoRex is the first. And so I'm hoping that you all can find value in this behind the scenes. If I am missing anything from those big categories, please go to the CargoRex website, make a free account, search for these businesses that you care about. If they're not already on there, add them as long as you're a representative from that company. We only are going to, there's a whole verification process. You can't claim a profile, which is a whole other set of can of worms, which I could probably get into. But long story short, we have a lot of companies on there. But if you work for these companies or these associations, I highly, highly encourage you to create a free account, claim your profile, and then you can have a little bit more control over the messaging of your listing. You can add news, you can add your YouTube channel, you can add, white papers and case studies and things like that, your best of content. You all have that capability within your profile if you belong to that company. And also, for missing anyone and you want to see them on there, let me know, shoot a DM, hit me up on team@cargorex.io. You can shoot us an email there. You can submit the business over on CargoRex, or you can ask somebody from that company or from that association, event provider, all of anyone from those five key pillars. Invite them to join the site as well, so they can have that full control over their listing and be able to reach that target audience of what they're trying to reach. And so that's the ultimate goal of this site. And if you stuck with me for this long, thank you so much for tuning in to this little behind the scenes episode. We're going to be having more of these in the future. Be on the lookout because we've got some fantastic features dropping here in the next few weeks. I believe the next CargoRex sort of behind the scenes episode we're going to have drop is around Labor Day. So we've got some really exciting updates, especially around the search capabilities, which have admittedly been a little lacking. But the next search is just going to be incredible. And I can't wait for all of y'all to see it. But until next time, thank you so much for listening, and go over to CargoRex, get signed up. And thank you so much. This is the end of this episode, and we are in August, and I would be remiss if I didn't drop a Go Jags. So football season is upon us, and I'm glad that I got building out close to 100 associations done before football season started, because it's going to be a busy one. So Jags 2026 Super Bowl champs. You heard it here first. See ya.